What's going on, everybody? It is
How are you?
Thursday, August 13th, 11:34 in the morning. We're going live, the Future History Podcast.
Here we is.
Yeah, a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Yep.
We got some different material to go over today.
We did. You pointed out about today being National Left-Handers. Is that what it was called? National Left-Handers Day. Being a lefty, a day like this is important to me. So it's something I'd like to. It's not often lefties get any type of advantages in anything. I guess
Do weightlifters have an issue? Would you say, or is it also symmetrical that there's no difference?
There's no difference. More growing up, I think left-handers were, now things are adjusted for left-handers as far as school desks and stuff. But as a kid, I would always, do they still give penmanship grades in elementary school? I got to look on your
I think they
brothers
did away
and
with
sisters
cursive.
report card. Okay, well, it was called penmanship when I was young. And every year the grade that I would receive in penmanship was either a C or a D.
Right.
Mostly a D, and it was because I had what's called the lefty hook, where you
Right.
And then your whole hand would be covered with the ink, and
right. I remember that. Yeah.
So that was growing up, penmanship was an issue. During sports, I played soccer most of my life as far as sports go, and I tried out for baseball. I mean, I played all different sports, but as far as playing school sports, I went out for baseball one year, and automatically I had made the team the one year that I went out for it because I was a lefty. And once I picked the ball up and I threw it in from the infield into the catcher, the coach saw it, said, "Oh, you're a lefty? We need you." Even, just to see, who knows if you even could play.
It just throws a mix into the
because
variety.
if they can turn you into a pitcher, or if they put you up in a spot where you're hitting and you're a lefty, it poses problems for the opposing pitcher sometimes.
I saw that I think they're going ahead with sports and everything in September, right? I don't know.
Yeah, well, they are. I mean, sports are going on right now. You have baseball and hockey playoffs are going on. Basketball. It's odd watching it without, or even listening to it without the crowd. I don't know if they're.
I keep talking to people about these robotic fans that they're trying to put in the stadiums, and also
cardboard
the
fans,
cardboard cutouts. I have such
Bizarre.
an issue.
Bizarre.
Have you ever seen V for Vendetta?
No.
Great movie. Hugo Weaving stars as.
Hugo Weaving?
Yeah, he was.
Wouldn't know him if I saw him.
He's an English actor.
Okay.
But it goes, remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. That's Guy Fawkes.
Okay.
Guy Fawkes led this revolution against the English Parliament, I guess, at the time.
Okay.
It was he was a Catholic.
Right.
But anyway, so V for Vendetta is based upon modern day. It actually takes place in 2020.
Okay.
This movie was made 20 years ago.
Okay. Oh, so
it's about,
shooting it supposedly in the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it takes place in England in this. It's almost like they're in a nanny state. The Chancellor is always on a big screen for the greater good, and
Big Brother looking at everybody. It's almost like George Orwell's 1984.
And this guy, Hugo Weaving, plays this character that wears that anonymous mask.
Okay.
That's where that mask actually comes. The idea for that, I think, came from.
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I got no idea what that anonymous. What do you mean anonymous?
It's
mask?
A mask that a lot of these protesters wear. That I'll show you a picture of it.
Okay.
Actually.
Yeah, because I'm.
You'll recognize it, but it's just amazing. I wanted to mention it because it is a lot of parallels in that movie to what we're living today. I really you'll love it if you watch it.
Well, getting back to being a lefty now, it helped in sports, like I said. So I'm gonna milk that National Left-Handers Day for a little bit because. But it was odd because my brother and I were both lefties, and both my parents were righties, which. Doesn't happen too often. So, but anyway,
that's the mask, real quick.
All right, let's. Oh yeah, I hit it off.
You know,
but I know the look. Yeah, it's almost the mustache and odd. Yeah,
that's supposed to be Guy Fawkes.
Okay. Got it.
So, yeah, a little tangent, but I just wanted to plug that real quick for people, in case they haven't seen it.
And what was the name of it?
V for Vendetta. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, never.
It's on Netflix right now.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a classic for sure. It's
All
strange. Right. So, Left-Handers Day. Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was just just a little aside about.
Are you gonna celebrate?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do for it?
I don't. I'm gonna let my let my left hand rest a little today. I think I'm just gonna kind of keep it on a pillow and But actually, it helped playing. It helped in sports growing up. It helped playing soccer. It helped in baseball.
Yeah.
But in school, it was it was. Now I think as I got towards college, they started having left-handers desks, where the desk was on the opposite side. So it's good for boxers, I guess. If you're fighting and you're a southpaw, it's
Remember the chairs in like elementary school? How they were just so uncomfortable. They were like made out of like concrete.
Yeah, it was some type of plastic.
Right.
That was just when you
high schools too.
Yeah, it was odd. It was like this hard plastic, and
I guess if it was comfortable, kids would fall asleep.
It was like it felt like you were in an asylum when you looked at the walls, even when they were like these bunker type of bricks or cinder blocks. Painted either like a blue or
like
green.
a off-white.
Yeah, just that, But you literally, if you really looked at it and you took down the chalkboard, it could pass for an insane asylum. But those chairs were horrific in elementary school.
I always respected the teachers who, once they could do lessons outside, they did.
Yeah. Oh yeah, well,
not a lot of teachers did it.
College, that was more, that was more acceptable. I don't know,
In high school, we had a few teachers who were just like the oceans teacher.
Oh, okay.
And one of the art teachers, and you would just always see that. You always say, "Oh man, I'm jealous. They have the best."
Yeah,
class.
I wish I was in that class.
Yeah, I wish I was in that class. They're all outside eating Fritos and whatever, and.
Yeah. Well, there was a class in third. This is something that they try nowadays. They try to make sure that everybody is equal. Everybody gets equal things in school. When I was in third grade, there was one particular class, and anybody who went to Hauppauge High School, or I should say Hauppauge Elementary School, the Pines, particularly, who had Mrs. Ray in third grade. She gave her kids these little chickens. They were those little fuzzy, I guess, chickadees when they're babies. Cute little things. They didn't even have feathers yet. They just had like fuzz on them.
Yeah.
And each kid had his own chicken. And so you're a kid standing inside, and you're hoping when you get that report card for second grade, the last report card, that next year it says you have Mrs. Ray. Of course, I didn't have Mrs. Ray. I had somebody else. But these kids had these damn chickens, and it was like, I mean, to get one of those things was like, it was a prize. But
I think I remember there was like a specific point in elementary school where they would bring in like the baby chick incubators.
That's what they had. They had these, but it was this particular class. You actually had each kid had his own chickadee to take care of for the entire year, and they'd get to take them outside and play with them. So while you're in class writing notes off the board, you're looking outside. There's these kids playing with little chickens outside. So it was a, I don't know if that would fly necessarily, no pun intended. I don't know if that would fly necessarily in today's classes, but back then you wanted to get Mrs. Ray for third grade because it was,
just like you wanted to get Mr. Needles and Mr. Davy.
Okay.
Those are the two guys who were always
outside in your
The oceans class, I always kind of wish I took a little more serious because now I'm like,
I guess it sounds like you just studied all the oceans. Is that what the class
this guy,
is?
he first of all, he was like really dedicated to the water.
Okay.
He lived in Long Beach directly on the...
So he walked the walk,
He walked the walk. He was a full-time surf instructor. And you could tell he was just like a passionate marine biologist probably.
Right. Well, that's good. When somebody's like that, it makes the class a lot more interesting, So
but he also was just very chill.
Yeah.
He was very,
We had a teacher who, in high school, he would walk around, like you'd have the school building in like the middle of the property, and then you'd have the perimeter of the school. And this guy, every day, I'd be in gym class, we'd be outside, he could be playing baseball or soccer, and you look over, and this guy would be, it looked like he rolled a joint and started walking around, which he probably, did. So he was walking around the perimeter of the school, and he had this big grin on his face, and he, wouldn't talk to anyone. He kind of looked like he was talking to himself, but it was every day just wandered around the perimeter of this school. And kids used to talk about it, and they would say, "What's up with that guy?" I mean, he was always just, wandering around. But
we had. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, it was not just he was a teacher though that he was just totally chill in his class. He was totally relaxed, and another one that kids wanted to get. I don't know how.
See, that's that education overhaul that you're talking about. Is we need more teachers out there where kids say, "Hey, I would love for you to teach me."
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of things that need to be done. You know what the problem is, though, and having been a former teacher, I can attest to it. You're really handcuffed by the curriculum that the state hands down. I mean,
right.
And what happens is, the more things like diversity that are added in, the more things that really take away from actual learning of the subject matter, it just becomes, plus state tests and so forth, there becomes less and less time to do things like that. But you're right, any type of learning that isn't just based strictly on looking at the chalkboard, writing down notes, there's no, then they were trying
it's funny to me because they could do away with textbooks and give every kid one of these because that's what they're pretty much doing.
Well, that's
now.
what they're starting to do, right?
And it would just be so much, I think, more cost effective.
To give them all laptops?
Well, yeah, they're not expensive now. They figured out how to develop.
Well, the cost of textbooks and everything else, they could probably just hand one of those out for the.
And
they,
you get a couple years out of them at least more than a textbook, unless kids start robbing them, which was always the issue with those nice calculators.
Right. Right.
So who the heck knows how they're going to handle that?
They used to, they would hand us, and this is going back in the 80s, they would hand out these textbooks that were, yay big.
Sure.
And the kids would bring them home. They'd have 2 days, 3 days to get them, make sure the textbooks got wrapped so that they didn't get damaged. So your grandmother, my mother, would, I think all parents during this time period used brown shopping bags to wrap the textbooks. So,
yeah, I remember. Wow, you just brought back such crazy memories.
Yeah. So we would have all these, stack of textbooks, and they didn't let you keep a set of textbooks in class. You had to carry these things every day, home and back and forth and back and forth, and it was the book bag had to weigh about 40 pounds, so you have kids walking around like the Hunchback of Notre Dame walking to class.
Right.
And but all
terrible
the books
for your spinal health.
Horrible. Scoliosis central. But the books were all wrapped in these shopping bags. And your grandmother was, she got this thing, literally looked like the shopping bag came with the book. She had it
perfect.
So
like a hotel bed.
Yeah. She took pride in wrapping these books, and her being a perfectionist, they had to be perfect. But that was what kids did back then. They used shopping bags, and there wasn't any crazy stuff put on books like nowadays. I think they
use those velvet coverings that look like do-rags.
Yeah, exactly, like these spandex covers.
Yeah.
But shopping bags were used, and I guess I don't know, what shopping bags are they on nowadays? Are they giving out paper bags, plastic bags? What do you...
You just brought up a sore subject for me because these plastic bag taxes in Long Island are really... It's just every time you go to the supermarket, if it's not like
a nickel a bag, right? Or is that
Well, I don't mind paying the nickel a bag.
Right.
But why not just go paper? Why not just go recycled paper all the way and make it not a big deal? Just get rid of the plastic.
Well, is that what they used to use, those shopping bags?
Why did they change that?
There was a store that I went to that actually had the shopping bags again, like they brought them back, and I went to pick up the bag and everything fell out the bottom. So I don't know if they just made them crappier than they used to or whatever it is. But
who was the genius who said we're going to go plastic? At some point in history, that happened.
Well, like I said, back in during everything is back in the 80s with me because that's my real point of reference as far as. But during that time period in the 80s, it was I just remember not plastic, paper bags, obviously because the textbooks were wrapped in them, and that's what everybody went shopping with. But I really couldn't tell you when the transfer took place as far as paper to plastic. But
was it happening in the 80s? Was there? Do you recall?
No, it was all paper bags.
All paper.
Back then, all
so
paper.
It must have happened sometime in the 90s.
90s, early 2000s.
I remember going to Wallbaum's and being really young. Remember the one that was
sure
up
the local,
over there?
Yep.
And it was always paper bags. But then you're right. I started to see way more plastic. It was probably around 98, 99.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I prefer plastic as far as for using it for other things, but yeah, I mean, I guess environmentally, it's not.
Well, the thing is like it exists for so long after you've owned it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and it's tough to.
What's happening now is due to the coronavirus and due to this public scare with anything that you kind of keep and reuse, and everything now has to be tossed out and new ones.
Right.
They're saying that there's in the next 20 years, there's actually going to be about triple the amount of plastic waste floating out into the oceans than there was today, due to the fact.
Have you ever seen the video clip? I believe it was in the Dominican Republic.
Mm-hmm.
There's a beach that is just
covered in plastic,
covered the water, and when the waves roll in.
I saw one in the South Pacific. It was a little island off the South Pacific.
Maybe that's where it was.
Same thing though, but it was the same thing. It was just covered in plastic. The netting that the birds catch their beaks on, it's just. But
I can't stress enough though, like I go fishing from time to time, like I told you, and the things I find that people leave behind are just like atrocious.
Well, that's the thing. Like, there's certain things that. Look,
it's like intentional.
That's the difference. There's certain waste that, it's you can't avoid it, or whatever. You just, some things you just can't avoid. But things like, moving your ass to throw something out, do it. Like, stop leaving stuff littered
most of these
everywhere.
people go fishing and they use these public docks.
Right.
There are garbage pails there.
Yeah, but they'll just chuck everything.
They'll just take a big wad of fishing line and they just throw it. And what's funny is it's like most of these places with the docks are estuaries. So if anyone looks that up, that's where like the most biodiversity actually is.
Right.
Those are the breeding grounds for our fisheries.
Yep.
And they're actually throwing the worst stuff they could possibly throw in the most sensitive
area.
Well, that's why
that's the type of things where humans are gluttonous.
Disgusting.
They're, like I said, there's certain waste that you just can't avoid. I'm not somebody that's like, we have to do away with every single emission. The jury's still out on that.
It's really not people
anyway.
From this town either.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get people, like out-of-towners, they come in and they just decimate. And I totally understand. Like, imagine how they felt Long Beach.
Well, that's the pig American tourist. That's what they, that's what people hate. When we go around the world, they see this caricature of Americans where, they're just kind of
eating Big Macs.
Yeah,
like
dropping the paper on the floor.
Smoking cigarettes,
cigarette
driving
butts.
Cadillacs.
Right. Yeah. Anything they could do to poison the earth is, but and again, there's a lot of them that don't do that. But it's just, Yeah, well, we are cleaner than a few of the countries out there.
Yeah, you
don't
really hear us getting thrown into the filth mix too much.
No,
you more or less hear about our deals.
After
the Paris, agreements.
After I started watching, there's a video I watched of a guy who lived in China for the last 14 years, and sometimes when he's filming, he's like, it's not even that my camera is bad or the lighting is bad. There's so much smog where I'm filming that I actually have to get a certain filter on my camera. So,
well, that typical. That's a China story.
So that's one of the countries. China, India, obviously, those are the two main culprits that everybody looks at as far as poisoning the atmosphere. And
I told you the story of my friend Chris. We'll call him Chris.
Okay.
He was an immigrant from India. He was Catholic Indian, and we worked together at one of these kitchens. And he was just an amazingly skilled fruit carver.
Okay.
And I'd work with him, and he disappeared for like a month or two. He went on vacation back to India.
Right.
I shouldn't say disappeared, but he came back and he said, "I'm never going there again." He said,
"Never going back to India?"
Never going back because they're being. I don't know what the word for it is. It's not really like Chinese people are inundating the areas, but it's like Chinese influence is starting to set in, and as a result of that,
products, you mean, and
products,
cultural,
real estate purchases, slums being created. I mean, he literally said.
Is there like an influx of Chinese into India now? Is that?
He said the population has totally flipped.
Which is odd because you would think there's enough labor in India with the population being what it is, but...
This was from the horse's mouth. This is from someone who grew up there, lived there.
So he will not go back to India?
He said he'll never go back to India because of the Chinese problem.
Wow. people look at this country and this guy who I was talking about that went to China. One of the most interesting things that I found him, when he said it, was he said, I've come back to he came back to America. I'm going to get into down the road when we touch on China.
Yeah.
What was actually going on, but there were reasons this guy was American. He was born in upstate New York, moved to China, married a Chinese woman, had a kid, and was there for 14 years. Things were occurring that caused him to move back to the United States, and I'll touch on that at another time. But what I found, pretty impressive about America was, he said, when you're out of this country, not for a few weeks or a few months, but when you're out of this country for years and you come back, you realize how little racism there actually is in this country compared to countries abroad. And he said that, China, if somebody went over to China and they stayed for any length of time, the amount of racism that they would see, it's almost like a reality check, where he said that the way people are in this country, the way people are able to attain jobs they want to attain, the way people hold the door for somebody of a different color, just even the way the wait staff in a restaurant waits on a person of a different color, religion, whatever it is. He said this country it's not even comparable to when he was over in China. And I just think,
this country rolls out the red carpet for people.
It does.
And everybody knows it, and that's why everybody comes here.
And that's the problem, is it's not the people, it's the people that are here, born here. A lot of these kids that are, spoiled by the riches of this country.
It's funny because
they're the ones with the problem.
We really offer a better deal than Canada. Because, see, when you want to go to Canada to work, you don't really have much of a shot to live there. You have a seasonal pass to go and work, and then you have to return back home to wherever
What do they give you, like one season to stay there and work? It's like a temporary
visa to work.
Okay.
Which is a smart system. But here you have like a temporary visa to do whatever the hell you want, and you can kind of drift around, and as long as you don't get into any trouble.
Is the duration of time different, or like how long?
Like a season, a growing season. Usually it's for like farm work and agriculture stuff.
Got it.
But
the population in that country is completely different as far as the population density and things like that. Also, and just the sheer number of people. You know.
Yeah, I like to see what Canada does though, like vice versa to the United States, I guess. Just
what their policies is.
And see how it works.
Take a look at it. I'm curious because we always get a bad rap for that, and we get look, this country's going to get, anytime somebody's on top of the hill, there's always going to be people gunning to knock them down, and that's but it's the problem is it's from within. That's the difference, and it struck a chord with me when this guy said, coming back to this country, he said, I'm
just grabbing a cup.
I'm so happy to see the way America is and the way it deals with people of different colors, different religions, sexual orientation. It's not like that in a lot of the other countries, and it's something that we don't get enough. We don't stop and actually appreciate that, and it enlightened me to a lot of things. And
I was surprised when the mobs went nuts up in Canada. Because for my entire life, even elementary school through it was always Canada's a very accepting place. That was part of geography. They would always kind of throw that in there.
Well, Canadians are seen as generally low key compared to the American counterpart.
But I've heard people even through the business that we were in, where we spoke to some people up in Canada, right? And some of them were disgusted by the health insurance up there.
Sure.
You have some people who love it, and you have some people who hate it.
Yeah, a lot of people come to the United States for healthcare,
and a lot of people from the United States go to Mexico for their healthcare.
Right. Yep. Surprisingly.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with, I had a Hispanic guy, when I was in Ecuador, save my life when I had a tooth infection.
Can you just talk about that real quick? That was an interesting. You went down there. You had a bad toothache, right? And it was.
Well, yeah, I had.
How long did it take you in Ecuador to get an appointment with a dentist?
Instantly.
You gotta you just called and walked, or you just walked in and the guy took.
They have what you call a. By the way, this was a while ago. This country, I don't know if anything is still like this because of COVID. Mm-hmm. Those areas got decimated economically.
So pre-COVID.
Yeah, pre-COVID.
And hopefully to be again after this. hopefully
Yeah.
it'll be back to this. But
It was
go
a
ahead.
beautiful
So,
country,
yeah.
and everyone was really sweet. But
So instantly,
I was able to get an appointment. All right,
Right.
so I'll give you a quick overview
Yep.
of this. This is great. Major mouth infection in my gum line, and my teeth fused to the bone here. So to pull them, it's a bit of an extra ordeal.
okay,
It takes
yeah,
a
it
sleight of hand.
sounds like yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
a heavy duty operation.
we
there.
made a phone call. I had to just basically sweat the night out, go there in the morning.
Okay.
The doctors brought me into their office,
Mm-hmm.
handled it real quick. There was just no like, oh, they were like, hi, how are you?
No triage where you have to sit
No
and
nonsense.
talk to them for a while.
Yeah, like they asked me some questions.
Yep.
We were having a nice conversation. It was really the same deal as if you were an American dentist. They gave me medicine. They were professional.
Got it.
Then I took an X-ray of my head and got medication. The whole thing cost me $30 US, and it was all same day.
Amazing. Well, that's the thing, when you go to a country like that, you're expecting this medical care to be so subpar.
What the move is that there's people from the United States who go there who see opportunity in the medical field because the country had at that time didn't have any kind of real medical care.
Right.
So you have these people. I think the guy who owned the building where my dentist was from Wisconsin. He was an
A
American.
lot
guy.
of expats in these countries, though.
Tons of
You
them.
see it all the time.
Tons of them.
I was looking at, hopefully my plan works out where I can actually retire at a certain age. And I was speaking to your mother one day about
A Tuscan villa.
that's choice number one. If not, I was there's spots in Mexico.
Yeah, by Jesse Ventura.
I mean, there's spots in these countries that, first of all, you move in there and you're literally, it feels like you're just living in a small town in America.
Right,
They have, it's all self-contained.
Yep.
All the groceries. First of all, the food down there in these countries. I used to go to the grocery store, and if I saw something like made in Mexico or made in China, I would, no way,
Yeah.
it's got to be made in the United States.
Yeah. Well, look at Mexican Coca-Cola. It's just
The quality of the food in some of these places, is so much better than the crap that you're getting in this country.
I lost 27 pounds when I went to Ecuador, and this is we really monitored it.
Right,
And
right,
I
right.
ate like a gavoon.
Yeah.
I mean, I ate like a pig. Their food doesn't have any hormones. They can't afford hormones.
Well, yeah, they put pure sugar cane in the Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
But
I
that's
shouldn't say they can't afford. I mean, Mexico and South America are different, but
right.
at least down there, like if you're raising a pig, if you're raising a chicken, it's eating what that animal's nature intended it to really have.
Right. It's not being force-fed.
It's really different.
yeah.
The eggs are much smaller. Chicken eggs.
Yeah, because that's what they're supposed to be.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yep.
Here, everything is
bigger.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is why our society is probably very
Large.
large and in charge, which isn't a bad thing, but
So these countries though, the move is really to go down there. Your dollar obviously goes way further. Who knows where it'll be after all this? I'm talking pre-COVID, obviously,
Pre-COVID,
with
yeah.
everything I'm talking about. But
the other doctor I had was Cuban. He lived around the
people
corner.
from all it's you live a much better life than you would in certain countries if you go to these other places. And the people were saying quality of the food is better, the weather is better, like everything you could possibly want as a retiree.
But the dark hole of the crime is much darker.
Well, that's why you're going to certain areas, and the areas that these expats are moving, they have heavy duty steps to fortify them as far as security and everything. And obviously, you're not moving to the center of where the drug cartels are really operating out of. You're moving to parts that are further out. But that's
what amazes me is I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and they had lived down there. They came back. Like college, Major League Sports have scouts who go to an area and look for.
Especially down in the Caribbean and areas like that.
What I'm trying to say though is that the cartels have scouts.
Okay.
And believe it or not, they are in every town from Mexico to Argentina.
Sure.
And the story I don't
What are they
even
scouting
know.
out? What do they have, a cartel
They're
baseball
looking for
team or
people
something?
who they could take advantage of. Expat. I'm telling you, Like
Gotcha.
I don't know if I'm
Interesting.
ready to actually tell the story on air
Yeah.
because it really is horrific.
Okay.
But what I will say is there are people who are in human trafficking. There are people who are in drug dealing. You know, it's all kind of one of the same.
Right.
And they're looking for someone who's a dope, who they could take advantage of, who they know has money, and that's all they do. These people.
Yeah, I
And
think
they,
look, there's going to be these stories. You know, these stories are going to be anywhere.
It just doesn't
You have
happen
to,
like that. here.
Yeah, you have to really pick and choose and do your research, obviously, before you move into these places. Because, like you said, if you're in the wrong spot, if you're in certain areas that they don't, take steps to ensure safety, then you could run into a lot of trouble. But also, I'm sure, look, anytime there's an event like what's going on with COVID, when money becomes scarce, crime always goes up. It's inevitable. Yep. So, again, everything I'm talking about is pre-COVID. But, I was watching this interview, and there was a guy who was down there for about 12 years, and he had said absolutely no issues with it.
Not a problem. Right?
No, not a. But, again, you have to really research it.
Oftentimes, the town knows that there's a black hand.
Yeah.
And they're afraid to let a newcomer know.
Yeah. Yep. Well, these are all within these areas. It's all you're not mixing with the outside population. It's just expats all in one area. Just like if it's somebody in going over to Saudi Arabia and they're in an embassy, you're really not mingling with the local population as much as what you would be if you just moved into a neighborhood. You're around a lot of people who are just like you, and you feel like you're in small town America.
The biggest,
but you don't want to venture outside the.
The biggest Jewish party is in Mexico. They do the Passover, and a lot of my chef friends have gone there.
What do you mean the biggest Jewish party?
It's like the Jewish people go to these hotels like Cancun.
Okay, I got
and
you.
they kind of like make a pilgrimage to like Cancun or something like that.
Okay, so it's vacation time to
Passover.
Cancun. Okay.
And it's all really high profile, wealthy,
right.
But people go there like chefs, and they work 7 days a week for 3 weeks for this Passover, the preparation and executing it and doing it all.
Yeah. Well, the Jews know how to party, though.
They do.
They do. do.
But the money that the chefs even individually, just like the chef and all the cooks, they make a fortune. They get people from all 50 states, Canada. They all go down to work in these kitchens, mega kitchens.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about, it's like Disney World.
Yeah, beaucoup bucks, yep. And the people going there obviously are...
but it's 3 weeks, 15-hour, 14-hour days.
So this is a thing?
It's like a marathon.
They do this like regularly?
Every year.
Huh.
Yeah.
And where are they coming from? Is it from Israel, or is it like...
No, I think it's global.
Global?
I think it's really just...
So they all make a pilgrimage instead of making a pilgrimage, for the Muslims going to Mecca. These guys go on Passover.
Cancun, they hang out for Passover, and they have a good time.
I'll tell you, Cancun, it sounds like a, better time than going to Mecca, but, regardless, it's
I always
it's
wanted to visit Tangier. Tangiers, Morocco.
Morocco's a beautiful country, apparently.
I've heard,
I've never been
people
there,
say
but,
some negative stuff, but for some
there's
reason...
nothing that's 100%.
It just looks like such a nice town.
Yeah.
Like, it really does. I'm sure there's some weird stuff that happens, but it is so ancient.
A lot of the, a lot of the English musicians from the 60s, I remember listening to a interview with Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, and his political views aside, again, these are things that we're going to break into as the podcast goes. We're just keeping it right now for the initial several episodes, keeping it light. But he had said, when he was a young guy, it was a common thing for a lot of these English people to do this, do their vacation in the Middle East. So especially Lebanon, which, but anyway, that's why when I think of Morocco and things like that, Robert Plant, when he was talking about, the song Kashmir and stuff, they were always talking about these pilgrimages to the Middle East. And
there must be something about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like a visual beauty to it, a mystique.
The press really, I'll tell you, for me personally, I had to go outside of like mainstream to do my own research on these areas, because when I was a kid growing up, I remember my parents had a friend who was came over from Israel, and this is when I lived in Queens, and there was our particular area. There was a lot of Jews,
Right.
and this guy had come over from Israel. Obviously, all Israelis have to do military service, but he was every day. The news would be on, and they'd have, especially during the 80s, there was pictures of Lebanon and what was going on in Beirut, and all these, terrorist acts and whatnot. But as a kid, you're just constantly seeing these areas, bombs going off, people in the streets with, anti-American slogans, burning the American flag. So, like, as a young kid seeing it, and it wasn't just at his house, but he would always talk about it and talk about the Middle East and what was going on there. But it really shaped my view of what that area of the world was.
Yeah.
And I never really delved into it any further until I got a lot older. Recently, thanks to the internet and even like looking up podcasts on, or whatever, webkit, whatever they are, on foods in these areas and vacations.
Have you ever looked at the
I'm
port
shocked.
of Alexandria
No.
in Egypt?
No.
Oh
I mean, I've looked up
God.
Egypt, but not that particular.
It is
beautiful, right?
just
Yeah. Well, the history,
the
the
ancient
food.
peoples that have come and gone, the Romans and the trade.
Yep.
I mean, the world developed through
Sure.
that. That's like a little
Well, that's
vein
where
and artery,
when there's a pathway, again, that's why in Venice
port to
you
the
had
world.
right. In Venice you had the Renaissance because of the fact you had all these different cultures and things passing through these areas,
And they're a very sophisticated culture now as a result of it. The
Yeah.
Egyptians,
Sure.
I remember working at. Do you remember when I worked at Starbucks way back when?
Yes, I did. Yep.
So there was this group of Egyptian gentlemen. They were really gentlemen.
Right.
They would come in and they would bring their baklavas,
Okay.
their own
Okay.
pastries,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the good fellas, right?
Sure.
And they would have their espresso. They were always dressed to the nines.
Right.
Slacks, nice shoes,
Yep.
nice socks, the whole bit.
Yep.
And they took a liking to me because I took a liking to them, and I
Sure.
would always try to help them with their coffee.
Which is generally the case when you're nice to people.
Yeah,
They will
right.
be nice back.
But the politics, that was really what they did, was they would gather there,
Right.
men,
Yep.
and have their pastries and their coffee and talk politics
Sure.
for 2, 3, 4 hours,
Mhm.
like 5 days a week.
Yep.
And I would ask them, like, well, what do you guys, like, what's the political situation over there for you guys? Like, what are you... And they would, most times they would kind of smile and not even tell me. They were like, you just wouldn't even get it, But I'll never forget that.
I find Egyptians, for the most part, to be generally nice people.
Enlightened, very intelligent,
Yeah. Like
secretive.
the guy that I told you about that when I was running by the complex, he I see him every day. He's barbecuing outside, and he just out of nowhere. I mean, I say hi to him. He was very friendly initially, and just out of nowhere yesterday, he said, I want to make you a plate. I mean, we never sat down together, broke bread, nothing like that. And he gave me like a huge tin of food to bring home. Really, just nice guy.
Super hospitable.
Very, and you could tell they want to make you feel.
Yeah. And I find that's even true with Iran, like Persians and people from Iran.
Absolutely.
Anybody like Anthony Bourdain went there, and
Yep.
these people are generally made to feel comfortable.
Yes.
In the main cities all around the world, you're gonna have.
It's a big part of Middle Eastern culture is to make visitors feel welcome. Pakistan, Afghanistan,
And
Yep.
some of the finest people I've ever met, and I got to say this, like this gentleman I knew, he was from the mountains of Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't say much. He didn't try to push his view on you.
Right.
He was wise.
Mm-hmm.
He had a general, like, silent, like, when silence speaks more than words usually.
Sure.
This guy
Yeah.
didn't have to speak for me to know that he was, like, on another level of
Sure.
thinking, really.
Sure. That's the
And
guy that's quietest is usually the one that's the
Yeah.
smartest in the room. That's a well-known prophecy. Sure.
Socrates, he said, only one thing I know, and that is I know nothing.
There you go.
And so that's the motto I try to live by, right?
You brought up the mountains in Afghanistan. That's actually the last place that I looked up. Being a former social studies teacher, I just took a liking to these cultures around the world.
Sure.
And like I told you, my view of the Middle East as a kid has been so skewed by what I saw in front of me. Propaganda. And I'm not saying that there's not areas that are anti-American or there's anti-American sentiment.
There's American cities.
The sentiment, though, is against government policies.
Right.
It's not against American people per se. So, with that being said, anyway, I mean, again, I'm not saying everything is perfect. but I decided, somebody had told me there's the Hunsa Valley or Hunsa Mountains in Pakistan. It happens to be one of the most beautiful places in the world to look up.
So when I discovered there was snow in Afghanistan, it was like a moment for me where I said, "Wow, like what do we know?"
I looked up this place in Pakistan, and when I tell you that it was beyond breathtaking, the views, and there's actually there was a landslide in 2010 that up in the mountains caused this man-made lake, and the lake itself is completely. It looks like you're almost looking into a mirror, and you're up in the mountains. You have the clouds around you, and you're literally looking into this crystal blue, like a mirror, and it's stunning. But that being said, the geography's beautiful, and it's instantly once you get up there, and 360-degree circle you could do, and it's prime geography all around you. The part of it, though, that I really found interesting was that the people, first of all, you have people from all over the world. They were staying in a lodge, the people who I was watching in this area, following their trek to this area, were staying in a lodge who was run by an Australian, and there was about 5 guys sitting around having tea in this lodge, and they were from all different parts of the world. The actual people who were native to Pakistan that were staying in that area were, when I tell you, the most welcoming, hospitable, nice, happy to see you as an American, and just the nicest people. And they took these people in a trek. There were two interesting things to see there. Not only was the man-made lake interesting, but there was 2 other things to see. There was a tunnel that was created by China. China came in and built a tunnel through this mountain, and you walk. The guy said, as you drive you get a moped, you rent a moped up there. As you're going through the tunnel, you lose all sense of light. You can't see light in the entrance. You can't see light at the exit, and you're just surrounded by dark in the middle of this mountain. And the only light is this little moped light, and that's one of the things to see. And then there's also a bridge that they constructed across one of these mountains, and you're up thousands of feet in the air, and it's this rickety bridge. It was only made about 20 years ago, but the people they followed the bridge, they went on it, and you can watch them go across it. But the help that the locals were giving these people, it's just my whole view of that area of the world is completely changed. Your mother thinks I'm nuts. I'll tell her, like, jokingly, I'll say, oh, maybe, for our vacation, let's go to Afghanistan. She's like, you could go. And she looks at me like I'm insane. But it's my view of that part of the world. And then when you see Europe now turning into a cesspool in certain areas, it's like,
hey, maybe, right. Maybe the Middle East is the move,
right. So my view of that part of the world, and again, this is not involving politics at this point of the podcast. We're going to get into that down the road. But people are people, and no matter where you go. They're just trying to get through the day. They're just trying to earn a living, feed their kids, and I'm like basically enlightened by watching what I watched, and it's just an amazing part of the world. So Pakistan, you told me this 10 years ago, I would have looked at you like you were nuts.
Right.
Beautiful, beautiful part of the world.
Well, so, there's parts of India that look like they're out of a video game.
India as well.
And it's they have such a biodiversity as far as animals.
Yep.
When
I was a kid, when I was in first grade, Tom, I used to, the teacher would take you to the library, and for some reason, there were 2 books that always attracted me when I would go to the library. Again, I was in first grade, so my level of reading was probably at a first grade level. And the books that I would pick, there was one that had stories and fables from India, and one from China. And I guess obviously my life followed the path of those books. Like I got into history and social studies, but I used to take these books, and those 2 countries fascinated me.
Right.
But as I got older, and I started to watch those countries through the TV and through the lens of the media, my view completely changed, and I had absolutely no desire to learn or go to those countries. I wanted to learn about them.
You
I just
almost
didn't want to
resent
visit.
them.
Yeah,
You feel like, hey, how dare they live that way?
right.
Yeah.
And my view is completely different after watching some videos. China, I'm still kind of.
Here's the thing with China. China's like mega old. They are a historic, ancient nation,
society. Yes.
Yeah, whatever you want to call.
The culture.
And there's a lot of good that came from it.
Yep.
And there's also a lot of bad. And they have a lot of years on everyone else.
Right. And that's the thing is that when you're dealing with cultures that are very old, there are going to be these types of, rituals and things like that just people outside of it. The United States is like you snap your fingers compared to China. So,
China was, it's funny, like everyone loves pasta.
Yep.
Wonder where that came from. Everyone loves pizza. Do you know where the idea of pizza came from? The scallion pancake was the original
pizza. The scallion pancake that you still get in a Chinese restaurant was the original pizza. Wow.
I researched it. This is what I got off of Google. Marco Polo saw that, took it back to China, and they added the tomatoes and the mozzarella for the original Neapolitan.
Spaghetti I was aware of. We've known.
The scallion pancake
but I didn't know about
original pizza.
Wow. So the Italian peasant food
comes from
China.
Ancient China.
Interesting.
Along with tomatoes, if you look
No
at...
kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. Wow.
Tomatoes aren't native to Italy. They come from China.
See, this you can enlighten me on, because anything dealing with food history and stuff, I need a...
That's what I loved about being
So
a chef.
Tomatoes were not originated...
Tomatoes are not native. You know what's native to Italy is grains, olives, pistachios.
And they were a big fish because of the fact that they're a
but
peninsula,
as far as
right?
tomatoes go, they were imported from Italy, and they were first...
China.
Yeah, exactly. They were imported from China.
Wow.
Broccoli was invented in Italy.
Broccoli was, that's not something I'd really want to claim to fame about. Broccoli.
Yeah, they have broccoli.
That's broccoli Rob.
Yeah, but yeah, so pretty much everything that China has Italy has today to tout as far as food goes. Really, China's the godfather.
Huh. That is interesting.
Isn't
I had
it?
no idea. Yeah, like I said, the spaghetti, I knew about all that, but I didn't. So China, my curiosity, unfortunately, goes to some darker areas where, you hear the rumor Chinese people eat dogs, they eat cats.
Oh, they do.
So I checked on that, and unfortunately, it was true. And some of the provinces in China have festivals, and again, it's not something that everybody partakes in.
Right. Well, I ate guinea pig twice when I was in Ecuador, and some people thought I was Lucifer.
Well, that's the
for
thing.
That.
Yeah, you're gonna, different countries have, some people look at us for eating cows that way. That's just
right.
Depends on the country, the culture, what's deemed normal, what's not. So you can't necessarily hold these things against them. But they're, especially younger Chinese, do not espouse.
They're changing.
They are changing, and
they're heading more towards where we are, and we're heading more towards where they are.
Well, that's
isn't
that bizarre?
The yin and yang of
isn't that bizarre?
Yeah.
It's like
I don't get it.
The draw of these things. Yeah. So you see a lot of the Chinese that
people really feel like they've gotten the raw end of the American deal.
Except people that come to this country that
Right.
But
you're right. Depends people on who you're talking to.
But people who have lived here and have for any length of time or were born here, and it's not everybody, but when you're looking at the people that are doing all the complaining and everything else nowadays, you're talking about a lot of, privileged kids who come from a background where they don't have to necessarily be out there slaving away on a field working or, Well,
that's going to be the ultimate, downfall, I think, is just pure American millennial laziness.
Laziness, yeah.
Because there are so many opportunities out there for people to take up. And they don't take them up because they don't even look at them as an option.
Look, when you were a kid,
right?
When you were a kid, you always wanted to work, and
I think
you had a typical teenage. I know that I raised you, so I understand. There was that period where every kid goes. Nobody's 13, and then when they have a choice of either going to work or playing a video game.
Yeah,
I was there. I get it. I was like that also, but like growing up for me, my parents said when I was old enough, the big thing back then was getting a paper route. It was like a rite of passage for a teenage boy.
Yeah, it was what you
know.
did.
So you get your working papers, and I got my paper route. The Newsday was like the golden ticket if you could get a Newsday route, because that could be delivered in the afternoon. Unfortunately, the Newsday route was taken, and once somebody wrapped their hands around that route, they weren't going to release it to anybody else until they were old enough to move on to a better job. So I was a daily news daily news boy, which would entail getting up around 4:45, loading the papers together, the coupons, everything else, throwing them in a bag and then into the crate of my bike, getting out on the road around 5:15 in the morning. And before school, I would deliver, I guess I had about 28 houses. I would deliver the daily news. You'd have to open the storm door, put the paper inside, and then on Thursdays, I would collect. And you get the typical mooches that didn't want to pay.
Right.
And then you get, like Mr. Murphy was great, $2.50 tip back in 1986, 87.
So that's a week's pay.
Was but yeah, I was think back then I made $20-something a week, as a kid. And it was a little more than that, but it was like when I would collect for the papers, I remember that it was, with tips and everything, it was a little more, but it was still, I'd have my little green book. Thursday nights was collect time. I'd knock on the door, but that was, Grandma had made me start at a young age. Then after that, somebody owed your grandfather a favor, and he got me a job in a factory around the block from our house.
Right.
So by 14 or 13, I was working full-time in the summer, and just went on from there, just the pursuit of a job. I liked having money, and we raised
you never
guys
stayed
that
still
way.
either. You always was working out, or
we raised you guys that way. Your mother was on you guys to get a job, and she's still on your younger siblings to get jobs, and and she was always, by the time she was a teenager, she was working also.
It's scary too to think everyone needs a job now.
Very important. The work ethic is a very important thing. No matter what you're going to do in life, it's important. And when I look at people,
some people are very dispassionate, and that's the problem. Some people just do things.
Some people are out of touch with reality. That's and they're miserable in their own lives and miserable in their own pursuits, that they kind of want to drag those around them down. Like I look at, when I was looking, and again, these are all things that we're going to get into, but the people who started, the women that started the Black Lives Matter movement, when you look at them and you try to see what their jobs were beforehand, it's
Marxist alert.
Yeah, community organizer, no real job of substance, and it just, it lends itself to, now you see why these groups are the way they are. And, I found it interesting. Somebody sent out a thing today. Montauk Brewery or Montauk Brewing Company. It said, it had a sign outside, and it said, we donate to Black Lives Matter. And they had this whole mission statement. I wish I had that statement in front of me. And
I think anyone who sees this video at some point
has seen
this.
Somebody had sent
stuff.
it to me, and it's like, hopefully they didn't actually research what this group was and what their intentions are and where they started, because if they did, I'm shocked that they would even want to give money to these people. But it's a
lot of people in the middle class who are suburbanites,
right,
are obviously addicted to social media. They obviously believe everything that they see on social media.
Yep.
And some people that I knew personally who I've had to kind of sever ties with, just because
I think a lot of people have had to sever ties with certain people.
It's really depressing.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna subscribe to a belief that, okay, first of all, Black lives do matter. Your life matters.
Yep.
My life matters. Everyone's life matters. Black people need some help. I understand that.
Yep.
But I truly think the mobs are actually making it worse for them. I don't think that they're getting furthered by all these riots. I just don't. And it never has worked. It never will work. Yeah, okay, you want to you want to loot Nike? Go ahead, loot Nike. Nike says they don't care.
Totally defeats the
Right.
purpose of what they're trying to do.
But you're not going to look good. It's not an intellectual movement. It's a Marxist movement, and everybody knows it. And I feel bad for people who are my age who are trying to be civilly righteous or something and donating their hard-earned money. They only make a few $100 a week right now, and there they
Doing
go
the right
throwing
thing.
money at this group.
Yep.
Where's the money go? Who's their money manager?
Well, what's going to happen is the intelligent black people in the areas and that this is going on
They're not
are going
into
to they're not into it, and they're going to eventually start to come out against these people because they don't want their areas destroyed.
No.
And it's a lot of these disenfranchised white kids that are involved in this.
I'm going to tell the story of this guy, Boonk. I don't know if you've ever heard of Boonk.
Never
Boonk
heard
Gang.
of him.
He was this guy.
Never heard of him.
He was like a social media celebrity who would, let's say you went to, Petco to pick up a dog.
Okay.
He would be holding the dog as like a test run, and he would just be like, peace, and he would run off with the dog and steal, the dog.
And he'd steal the dog?
And he would, record himself, and he was so fast. He was a thug.
Okay.
He would do just terrible things, though, and he really, he was arrested a few times.
Gotcha.
But now...
How long ago was this guy around?
He was,
recent?
around for, 3... You know when, Lil Pump came out?
No.
All right, you don't know... You don't know
I'm
Lil
46.
Pump? You don't know Lil Pump?
Lil Pump.
You don't
I'm
know Lil
46
Pump?
years old. I don't know.
When that
I don't know Big Pump.
When that whole little scene came out, this guy was, really popular. This is probably, 3 years ago.
Okay.
All right?
Gotcha.
So...
I got to look these people up. Lil Pump?
But this guy's terrible. The things I've seen him do, stealing people's dogs.
And what's his name again? Boink?
Boonk Gang. Boonk Gang. Something like that. Regardless,
Heaven help this
now, this guy is he does these social media posts where he's in tears saying, and he's got all the facial tattoos, and he's a little... He's in tears pretty much, saying, I wish people would forget the person that I used to be, because now I want to go on with my life and be a good person. He's still younger than me, this guy.
Huh.
But it's these social media thugs, these people that do terrible things. They don't understand. Kids see that.
Sure.
People thought that was funny. People, he was doing terrible things to people. And everyone knows it who knows this Boonk Gang guy.
Well,
but now,
he's
crying and he wants, everyone deserves a second chance.
Sure.
But this guy did these things for months, maybe years, every day for... It wasn't pranks. It wasn't like Tom Green.
Yeah.
It was,
things that
really would screw you up. You should look him up on YouTube. I think he's a total piece of dirt.
Yeah, I actually am. Because you got to wonder when somebody does something malicious.
And everybody was all for it when he was doing this stuff. And you could only make money doing that. He's wanted in several states.
Well,
it's crazy though.
The people that were all for this guy are obviously brainless morons like he is because. To watch, I'm not into the malicious humor and stuff that these idiots do online.
He went to a Rolex store or a really nice,
right.
And he was trying on the watch, and then he just bails, runs out of the store, and he's really quick.
Yeah.
So he would always have his phone.
Yeah, that's the whole. This woman was on as I was coming over here. I was watching some headlines, and she's, go whatever. If you go into a JCPenney's and you rob it, these stores have insurance. If you got to rob these places to eat, you rob. Look, nobody's robbing any store so that their kids can eat. That's not, that whole myth is something that I want to dispel. Because
that wasn't even happening in the early 1900s Bronx.
Right. Nobody's robbing a TV at a Target so that their kids can have a peanut butter sandwich at night. That's these things are all fallacies, and the fact that anybody would even back that up, these people are mentally ill.
They live above the stores. That's the problem too. It's in these inner cities, the Nike stores downstairs.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you don't have far to go to, and all your friends are right there. Nobody owns cars. Everyone takes public transportation.
Yeah, they were.
These flash mobs can just they just come out of nowhere, and if you're working there, you're making $17 an hour, whatever these people make. You're not going to stand there and defend the store. You're going to get the hell out of there.
Right. Well, this woman was on, in front of her podium, saying, look, And I believe AOC said something like that also originally.
Oh, she's deranged.
Yeah, she's,
that's something I'll always say. Anytime you bring her up, I cringe.
100%.
I wish she would go away.
It's justified to,
She's hurting her area.
Crime is justified because people need to eat. This whole myth of that people are being fed by these idiots that are robbing.
Poor me story.
It's, Look, anybody's family is starving. I'm going to want to help them, just like
right.
Without a doubt. I would.
Well, you can't even donate to a charity anymore because it's
not going to the people.
It's just disgusting.
It's going in people's pockets.
And like back to Canada, Justin Trudeau with the We Foundation that he started.
Yep.
It was this COVID-related scholarship weird thing. You need hours.
He's the Canadian Gavin Newsom. You remind me of each other.
And he was really in trouble. And he's still probably really in trouble. I was following the story for a while.
And what was it saying?
It was a charity that he was a part of where his family profited from the charity.
Right. Well, that's the thing. When you actually delve into where the money goes,
right.
A very small percentage. And it's, there are some well-known charities, obviously, that are different. But you want to do your research. You want to find out follow the money trail, because most cases it's not going to where it's supposed to, and that's
most people aren't capable of research.
Right.
Most people just read headline news.
Right.
And they're like, okay.
But that's in line with, like I said, that's in line with the this whole myth that all of these robberies and looting that's going on is it's like Robin Hood, like it's the rich. Or people are robbing to feed their families or to feed the poor. Baloney. That's not what it's about. And look, at some point, these people.
I mean, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a New York congresswoman.
Disaster.
She's made it though to the top.
I know.
She has a great career.
Yeah.
She's a Latina.
New York is showing the results of our leaders. What you see in the city is, when you look at the leadership, you know why.
I don't know. I don't really know if it's a good thing to say, but I'm glad people are leaving. I'm glad people aren't putting up with this shit.
I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
If I had a business and I actually created jobs,
right,
and did something real, because that's the estimation in my book of if you create jobs and you're providing people money to take care of their families, you're truly doing something that's a tangible difference in the economy versus just making policy, which is just written in books.
Well, most of these people never had real jobs. Their whole life has been intangible things such as policies that, really do nothing but only increase the size of government. And that's what their whole end game is. What more can we get people to rely on us for? How many more handouts can we give so that people are just tied to the government? So people like her, And
the thing is, they make the handouts like it's the biggest thing in the world, but it's the equivalent of Tweed giving bread at the docks to Irish immigrants.
Yep.
It's not a permanent fix. They're going to eat the bread and you're going to be hungry again.
Right.
And then you're going to come back for more bread.
Right.
And more bread. And
rather than supporting small businesses.
Rather than use your brain to develop a plan to get ahead and maybe...
Nope.
No, they want you to... They are the party of racism because they want to keep you down. They want you to think that you're small and that you need them.
Absolutely.
And it's a sick... It is a mental disorder. Savage is right with that.
It is.
It is.
It is. Because
there's nothing wrong with being an old school lefty. And I always loved how Anthony Bourdain... That's how he described himself.
Sure. Old school leftists are completely
totally
different. You wouldn't recognize that party.
This election's going to be. I think we should do like a coverage.
This race
sort
is
of thing.
That's
night of type of deal.
Without a doubt. This race is actually Harris versus Trump. That's what it's come down to. It's not Biden.
I don't think
Trump.
it should be allowed to be that way, though.
No,
you can't have a vice presidential candidate going against the presidential incumbent nominee, right? So
I don't know if
let Biden go against Trump.
That's what's going to happen. But I think that it's just the media coverage. Media is going to eat this woman up. They're just gonna pump out everything she does. They're going to highlight. Yeah, it's already started. But there's
also some stories though that the left's not happy with her.
That's the right trying to push. Right, that's the right trying to push those stories. That But at the end of the day, when
she's been tough on a lot of things. on things that the left isn't happy about, though, and that's true.
Yeah, she has
jacking
been
up sentences on marijuana charges, and so I'm on the right. I'm on the right, and that pisses me off.
The problem is now also we need somebody who knows how to work with law enforcement, and I was listening last night to a few people who actually worked with her. Law enforcement, top of the line law enforcement from the state of California who actually worked with her.
Sure.
And they said she would come in and basically the intimidation factor right from the get-go and really would just shut you down, was very short, wouldn't listen to anything they had to say, and it wasn't fostering any communication between the two sides. And right now, that is what we need. We need somebody who, you don't have to be loved by the police, but you have to be somebody that's willing to sit down, work with them, and
Well, now there's talk. I really don't care. I'm going to say what I want to say, and I think that there's definitely like talks of coups happening, and it's not like a conspiracy theory. Nancy Pelosi's talking about it. Chuck Schumer's talking about it. And I know it's all probably just mudslinging. But
you're going to see more mudslinging than a children's playground.
That's not something to joke about today, though.
No, it's not.
Everybody's on a hair trigger.
Sure.
Everybody's emotional. Everybody's like...
Started with the quarantine.
Relationships are deteriorating.
Yeah. Started with the quarantine, and it just kept going.
The last thing that they need to promote is actual secession.
Right. Yeah. Look.
That is not going to be the solution because there are people who
I've
are
never
waiting
seen
for that.
Politics this bad where the sides are like...
It's crazy.
No, they will not sit down and have any sort of meaningful dialogue with each other.
Right.
It's just designed to, like you said, mudslinging.
I would love to sit inside those chambers while they're trying to come up with bipartisan, I want to know what they're really doing.
Yeah.
It's not fair that we can't see exactly what's happening live.
Well...
It should be public.
I've never seen a time in my life and in any of the research I've done where it's just the sides are really... It's not even like they're apart on policy. It's just it's like a hateful vengeance against the other side. And it filters down from the politicians to the people. And, this whole election is only going to fan the flames. I mean... It's going to be
chaos. A disaster either way.
Yeah, it's going to be chaos.
Because if Trump wins, the left is going to hold this country over a barrel.
And hopefully he's unleashed a little bit where he can actually push some policies
off through. A little bit and he hits them hard. Yeah. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, and winning another term, it'll enable him to do that. Right now, like we spoke about, the
left's got a lot to lose.
They do.
They really do because if they don't pull this win off, they are going to get really put under the microscope.
Yeah.
And they deserve it. And I think the roles need to switch where we start doing the investigation.
Yeah.
The American people start getting the
those
chance
are the people,
to
the people that are the ones that are always out there
pointing the finger.
When you look at them, they're usually the ones that have a mountain of skeletons in their closet. It is disgusting. Yep.
And people buy it.
Yeah.
Intelligent people, college-educated level people with master's degree and doctorates are buying this crap.
Well, that's what I found interesting about Kamala Harris was that her prosecution style and her style when she was in the Senate was to, when people were on the stand, was to kind of really pin them against the wall and really take them off their game, really disrupt any cohesive thoughts that they may have in order to respond. But yet when you looked at her term in as a prosecutor and things, there were reports of evidence tampering, there were reports of false testimonies. I mean, very sloppily handled reign there that she had, and she just tried to whitewash it and cover it up. So, usually you find that those people and the ones that are really, she's been described as vicious. I mean,
they
you're
can't
not
wait to do business with China. And I know that. I could feel it in my heart that the left can't wait to get things back to the status quo of dealing with their good buddies.
Yep.
It's so funny. That's the real enemy, and here they are. Not that just like when Trump was getting tough on Putin,
right?
They had an issue with that.
Yeah.
It's like they have an issue if he's friends with the guy, but then they have an issue if he's tough on him.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do? Make a decision.
No right. Yeah, he can do no right. And it's only going to, if he wins another term, it's only going to be more of the same that way. It's just anything that he does,
right.
He could do no right.
The guy's not perfect.
Far from it.
I don't even really...
Far from perfect, but...
He's just a better choice.
That's what it comes down to. At
sucks.
the end of the day, you have two choices. Who's the better choice? And I agree. Because I think that we're not going to have a Biden presidency for a full term. We're going to have a Biden, then segue into Kamala Harris. I'm not wishing anything bad on Biden, but I think that the reality of it is this is a guy who on Inauguration Day will be 78 years old, and he's not in... His mental capacity is not at 100%.
If he walks by me, I would think to maybe check on him, make sure if he's okay.
He's not
he's not a warrior. He's not a fighter.
And it's very.
But these people are no match for Trump, and that's one thing that I think everyone knows.
Right.
Trump has experience in the real world.
Yes.
And real business dealings.
Yes, he does.
Where these politicians are just career politicians who are constantly swaddled their whole lives, their whole careers. When they actually have to deal with the Donald one-on-one, they are no match. No. And Biden's going to just stand... Biden's going to have to sit back on the bleachers and let Kamala Harris come up.
That's the part that's going to be interesting to see. There's two things I think that's going to be interesting.
Can he stand up that long?
Right. The two things that I'm going to find interesting in the debates are when Trump and Biden go at it...
Trump better tear him apart.
How is his mental and physical... what kind of shape is he going to be in to handle the onslaught? And
he deserves what he gets. He should have never entered the ring.
And now, conversely, how is Pence going to handle a personality like Kamala Harris?
Pence is kind of like a poker face.
Well, yeah,
I think
sure
that's
is.
What's good. He really Pence is no dummy either, and he really knows how to.
It seems like right now they're trying to play it a little close to the vest. I think people were expecting more of a reaction from Trump about the Harris pick, and
it's funny too because if you really look at Trump abstractly, he really is a progressive.
Right.
He's not this staunch religious Republican.
No. Nope.
He's not that.
He's willing to entertain he couldn't be in the business types of right.
He's willing to really hear every argument.
Yep. He's been that way for many years.
He's so middle ground.
Yep.
But people, I guess because some of his following maybe.
Well, that's the thing is that
but it's not him.
Right. The left.
He's from New York.
Yeah, the left paints him, and his followers to be these, again, like I said, white supremacists, and it's, far from the truth because we said it yesterday. There's a lot of blacks, there's a lot of women, and there's a lot of gays and lesbians, a lot of foreigners that support Trump. And those are the people, though, that are going to have to come out. And another thing they're saying, too, is this idea that Kamala Harris is, picked because she's carding the African-American vote. She's not African-American, first of all. Her ancestors Caribbean and Indian. She's not African American, so she can't identify with the plight of an African American.
But the media loves calling her African American.
And it's
like what oh God.
And what you're seeing though is there was a woman who had called up last night on a program that I was listening to, and she said, look, I'm an African American. How dare this woman come on saying that she's, I think
it's like blackface.
The intelligent blacks are tired of people using them for political reasons.
That's all that's happening. It's still just a big group of people using these as their token.
And they're too smart for it. And they're too smart for it. And, it's I wish the rest of them would wake up and see that, you're being used by the political machine to, and it's
it's depressing.
Thankfully, there are some that are, and more than some, that see that this is just a big political, vote grab. That's
Imagine what we would accomplish as a country if we could all just be on one side. If we can all just agree.
Yeah. Well, I think
the rate of how we would progress would be incredible.
I think part of what makes America great is you have two differing views, and like you said, almost like a yin and a yang, and it kind of forms this great country. But it's when something to like we have today, where the sides just won't entertain a meaningful dialogue with each other. That's the part that makes it difficult. And somebody like a Pelosi,
they're useless.
They're completely useless. And all they're doing is padding their pockets.
When she ripped up the speech, the State of the Union speech, I really thought then, I took that as like a sign that maybe
it's treasonous. It's treasonous.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. Yep. That woman has absolutely nothing to offer. And I'm so tired
She's another career
politician. Her family, they're all career politicians.
Making money off the sweat of the backs of the taxpayers.
Yep.
Trash.
Yep. I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of hearing her, what she has to say about things.
I like when they turn on each other, too. Like AOC like there was like a little thing, and I keep it going. I want them to destroy each other. I really do.
There was an interview where Chuck Schumer was talking, and Kamala Harris was behind him. And due to Chuck being a more senior member of Congress, he kind of told her, because she was speaking up behind him, and he said, shh, like he basically shushed her on the interview.
Yeesh.
And then you see her face, like she's like,
ready
like a reprimanded child.
Yeah.
And, these people, it's like they have this grandiose view of themselves. And,
they're egomaniacs.
They're egomaniacs to the hilt. And, I'm tired of hearing it, and I'm tired of that side treating the American people like they're dummies or they're children.
Well, that's
especially
like the big
blacks.
myth is to like undermine your like educational credentials.
Sure.
To make you feel like you're like a radical or, And,
well, I'm tired of them.
It ain't gonna work on me. Nobody's telling me anything. And nobody's gonna tell you anything, right?
No, you gotta look. Most Americans are smart enough to see through it. It's just and again, that's like we talk about the silent majority.
Right. They're there, and they're going to come out in big numbers.
But unfortunately, the news coverage is of the loud minority. And the people who are always out creating mayhem in the streets and,
even local news has lost its way. It's disgusting.
It's totally lost.
It really is.
It's all, look, it has to compete with the online world now. And it's almost something that's not doable because the flood of information is instantaneous. So somebody catching the news at the end of the day, those things, people used to come home and watch the 6 o'clock news with dinner to catch up on the day, or some guys who work till the nighttime with 11 o'clock news.
It was just the highlights. It was brief. They scuffled through it.
And the people, that's how they got their news. Yep. They got it on the news programs at night, and they got it on, from the newspaper.
Yep.
Now it's become almost like you're watching, they used to have these shows on TV, these gossip back in the day, the early gossip shows. PM Magazine was one where it was almost like a People magazine on TV. Real news now has almost become like these news shows. I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. Yeah, it's a joke watching it. I don't.
That's why
watch
everyone
the news,
podcasts.
Yeah, well,
because
that's
it's really I think that at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. Is just people who have opinions. Yep. Who want to be heard, who want to be seen, and who want to share that with other people. You can
find out the news on your own, formulate your own opinion, and then a lot of, shows like this where hopefully a lot of like-minded people can get together and, express their opinions, their thoughts, and be heard. Because there's not a lot of places that people who oppose the view of the media or Hollywood or, these people in the streets can be heard. And it is a majority of people. It really bothered me
when they started to, when AG Barr, Attorney General Barr, was on trial there and giving his testimony, and they are treating that guy is a great guy. His resume is phenomenal.
Sure.
He's never really done anything wrong.
Right. Yep.
And these people are treating him like a dog.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's how they are. You get on the
They don't even let him finish his sentences.
No, and that's my problem with Kamala Harris is that she comes at you like a pit bull.
Right.
And yet when you look into her tenure,
I can't ask her a question.
Right, and when you look into her tenure as a prosecutor, I mean, cocaine would find itself its way out of the witness room,
disappearing.
And then I don't know how it happened, and false testimony brought. You can't. These are the people that are the ones that are coming at you, and yet when you look into their past, it's murky at best. So. It's going to be an interesting time, though, the election time and the time leading up to it.
I have such anxiety I don't want to say a negative anxiety, but I have this like, just, there's a hypersensitivity now that everyone I think has, where everyone is just biting their nails.
Yeah.
And waiting for the next catastrophe.
Well, you said it. It's like a hairpin trigger. You know, everybody's.
Yeah. COVID really changed things, and it's really made things much more charged. There's a lot more people available to just freak out in public.
Yep.
So.
Sure. People are basically stripped of a lot of the things that they like to do to release their, people used to going to gyms, watching a movie, things like that, things that people used to do.
Just walking into a bar to eat a burger and have a beer.
Yeah.
You feel weird.
Right. Yep.
You feel odd. You feel like you're breaking a rule.
Yep. I don't know.
And Miss Cuomo, I'll buy you a beer. Come back. Let's talk.
Yeah, right.
I hope, I'm sending out the word, don't come back.
Yeah.
Go to somewhere else. Let this state get what it has coming to it.
Yeah, unfortunately.
The state voted for these people.
Yeah.
You reap what you sow.
Yep.
And then let's see the result of what happens with Texas. Let's see what happens with all these great Arizona. They're going to be the future where the blue states are going to be really struggling. I'm not saying Cuomo didn't maybe handle Corona in a lot of people argue he did a good job.
Look, I don't think anybody could have handled that perfectly,
job.
Without a doubt. And I grant him that.
Yeah.
But
he didn't have to stand for the freaking rioting, though.
The way it was him, that whole thing automatically turned.
Day 200 of COVID, day 10 of riots.
Right.
I stand with the rioters.
Yeah.
What do you mean? You just told us for 3 months to stay locked in our houses and not come out because we're all going to die. And
that's almost comical.
It's one thing to say, I believe that there's an issue. I believe,
Yeah.
Okay.
It's almost comical that they tried to pass that off on the American people.
Jet fuel on the fire.
Yeah.
And so did de Blasio.
Yeah.
And for that, I can't forgive.
Yep.
This is where we live.
Yeah.
And it's nice for these people who have armed guards, armed security, armed everything.
And they're getting paid right now.
Getting paid.
Right. That's my biggest gripe with Cuomo is, look, when you're telling people to stay home from work and do it in a way that's like, he's like, the choice is death or getting paid. Like, no, that's not the choice. The choice isn't death or getting paid. Yeah, there's a lot of choices.
This is real, though.
And while you're getting paid, you're getting your hair cut, and you're living life. I'm not saying your job is easy.
He was bass fishing on his nice boat, I'm sure.
The sign of a good leader is a leader who is leads by example in a lot of cases.
Well, he's like, do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
So.
And that's my biggest problem with the way he handled it. Was, the way the lack of sympathy he had for people who I lost my business of 20 years.
Yeah.
I lost my business, my way of supporting my 5 children, and look, thank God I had the foresight to put money aside in case of a rainy day.
Yeah.
But how dare this guy sit up there the way he did in his regal approach and say, this is the choice, while he's getting paid. I lost all respect for the guy, not only as a governor, but as a man. I lost all respect. They look
like a mess up there, by the way. They don't even look well put together.
No,
there's no pride for the state.
It's a joke.
There's nothing.
New York is what their leaders are.
Yeah. And that's why I say, leave.
Yep.
Don't come back and have a beer with this jerk.
Nope.
Because that's what he is. He's a jerk. And he even had to bitch smack Bill de Blasio a couple times during COVID because de Blasio was trying to make these decisions over Cuomo's authority.
Yeah.
And it was pretty interesting to see Cuomo have to get really like Don Corleone.
Sure.
And handle de Blasio.
Yep.
What do they think was going to... I mean, these are supposed to be intelligent people.
Yep. Like I said, nobody would have...
I don't understand.
There's, I'm not foolish to say that somebody would have handled this perfectly, but the way that he went about handling it, and you have your number one taxpayers in the state are these small businesses, and to have the gall,
most of which are minority owned, by the way,
and to have the gall to tell these people, you have no hard data about this death rate. So stop coming out there like we're facing the bubonic plague.
Right.
I'm not saying it's not, people don't have to take, you got to take precautions and you got to be smart.
Yep.
But
you literally just broke the whole country.
Right.
So
Right.
You have all plans to shut it back down.
Some empathy for
like
people.
Like he says with the valves. I got valves.
Yeah.
I got pipes.
Yeah.
Okay, so where's your economic valves, buddy?
Yep.
Because you said it a month and a half ago things were going to be better.
Yeah.
Now it's at a worse.
Right.
It's at a worse point.
Right. You can't have people stay home from work for 5 months, not earning an income,
and give them $1,000 a week,
and think they're going to be okay.
They're going to come right back to the job market.
Right. While, like I said, while you're all getting paid, and expect people to respond in a way that they just follow every little thing you say. I mean, it's ludicrous, and
Let's leave it at that today. We're going on an hour and a half.
Okay.
So we just sat here and gabbed away. We gave our daily spin. And we'll see. Maybe we'll stop by this weekend. Maybe we'll start fresh on Monday. But it was a lot of fun.
Tomorrow's Friday.
So yeah, COVID problems.
So tomorrow we will see everybody. Yeah. Back same, roughly same
daily
spot.
Spin.
Yep.
And that's that. You got anything you want to drop in, or are you all?
Well, again, all you lefties out there, fellow left-handers, enjoy National Left-Handers Day. And one final thing.
True.
Today in history was the beginning of the construction of the Berlin Wall. So it is an interesting day in history. This was the day that the Soviet Union began construction of the Berlin Wall, which is no longer. But it was today in history. Walls. So
sometimes you say balls.
Yeah.
Depending on what day. Walls and balls.
So,
all right, so that's it for today.
Ciao, and we will see everybody tomorrow.
All right.